Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I'm here to talk about Dan Ige versus Bryce Mitchell, the co-main event. Ige is 32 years old, 17-6 as a pro, and he's given up 3 inches of height, but has 1 inch of reach over 28-year-old Mitchell, who is 15-1. Bryce Mitchell's one loss comes to Ilia Topuria in his last fight. Topuria is fighting for a title now. There's no shame there, but Topuria was pretty dominant. Mitchell did get him to the ground, like he does to everyone else, but he wasn't able to advance on him like he does to everyone else. And on the feet is where the fight turned, in my opinion. Topuria started beating him up and then pancaked him to the mat and choked him eventually. But that's not a loss that I think too many other fighters can duplicate or replicate. I think Bryce Mitchell ran into a guy who, is, again, fighting for a title. He reminds me of Alexander Volkanovski. So, no shame there. But Mitchell, in every other one of his losses, every other one of his fights, he's looked dominant. He's got 15 wins, 9 via submission, 6 via decision. And that says who he is as a fighter. He's not much of a striker, although he is willing to throw down. And he did knock down Edson Barboza. But mainly, it's all just so he can get you to the ground. And on the ground is where he shines, where he thrives. This guy's a monster on the ground. Really good passing, incredible control, and just an overall excellent ground game. I think he could test Dan Ige in ways that Ige hasn't been tested. And I know Ige was recently mauled by Movsar Evloev, but Bryce Mitchell is a different kind of grappler. I think with the jiu-jitsu incorporated into his top game grappling, he's much more of a submission threat and a back-mounting threat. So that could be interesting because Dan Ige has never been finished. He's got a record of 17-6, 6 losses, and they're all via decision. And some of them are in 5-round fights in the UFC. Calvin Kattar, Korean Zombie, and then Movsar Evloev, as I mentioned, Josh Emmett, that was a war. Julio Arce, I think that was his first UFC fight. Dan Ige is bona fide tough. And he's one of those guys, even though I just said Bryce Mitchell is a unique threat to him, and it wouldn't surprise me if Bryce Mitchell was able to get him out of there, especially because Bryce is so dominant on top. But until I see Dan Ige finished, I don't believe it can happen. So I trust his durability. But offensively, Dan Ige is very well-rounded. 17 wins. He's got 5 knockouts, 5 submissions, 7 decisions. Pretty well-rounded there. And we've seen him get knockouts in the UFC, knocking out Damon Jackson recently. His striking looked phenomenal there. Gavin Tucker, I mean, that was like 10 seconds or whatever, but still it showed his power. I think Dan Ige is better on the feet, much better on the feet than Bryce Mitchell. I think Bryce Mitchell is dangerous because he's carefree, but he is not close to being a technical match for Dan Ige. Dan Ige is much more comfortable. He can fight moving backwards and I think handle the striking of the pressure of Bryce Mitchell. And he's a great counter striker, Dan Ige, and he's a guy that's going to need to be keeping his hands, ready to defend takedowns as well. I think he's got a good enough style to defend against Bryce Mitchell's takedowns. And Dan Ige's got good cardio. Again, I mentioned he's been to 5 rounds in a losing effort twice in the UFC to Calvin Kattar, a Korean Zombie. But we've seen him scratch and claw for victories as well over Edson Barboza. I thought Barboza won the fight, to be honest, but still, he scratched and clawed, and he was the last man standing, so to speak, and he ended up getting a bullshit nod. Nate Landwehr is a fucking zombie. That guy will almost always be the last man standing, but still, Dan Ige looked really sharp in that fight, and was just much cleaner. Same thing with Mirsad Bektic. That guy in his prime was one hell of a fighter, and that was his prime, and he tested Dan Ige, but Dan Ige, again, was the last man standing. I think Dan Ige is a really well-rounded fighter, and much more well-rounded than Bryce Mitchell. This is going to come down to the takedowns, because I think if Bryce hits the takedowns, he's going to control Dan Ige, as he does with most fighters. And I'm picking Bryce Mitchell to win. Dan Ige, he's good as a wrestler. Dan Ige's good. He can defend takedowns as well as hit takedowns. And Movsar Evloev is an exceptional wrestler, that brings a pace, and he's stronger than, I think stronger than Bryce, and he's a different kind of grappler, but he's still a top-game grappler like Bryce Mitchell, and he was able to get in on Dan Ige multiple times. That's not the only fight I'm looking to either. I know Dan Ige's I've studied every takedown that he suffered, leading up to this fight. And I think Bryce Mitchell is exceptional in that realm, pretty damn tough, and I think he can stand up to Dan Ige's offensive prowess. I don't think Dan Ige brings the danger that Ilia Topuria brung, so I think Ige not being able to capitalize on moments where he's winning the striking and make Bryce pay where a guy like Ilia Topuria did, I think that'll keep Bryce in the fight, and I'm expecting Bryce to win the fight. I think he wins the points battle, and I think he does so with takedowns. And once he's on top, he will be controlling Ige, trying to advance, but whether or not he comes close to a finish, I think he's going to hold Dan Ige down if he gets him down. And that's what I'm going with. I'm going with Bryce Mitchell. I think he's going to be a stronger grappler, and I think Dan Ige is not going to be sound enough to defend against Bryce Mitchell's relentless takedown prowess. So Bryce Mitchell's the pick. Minus 220 was what I bet on him at, and now he's minus 205. Look at that. And that's the pick. I'm going with Bryce Mitchell. His decision line is minus 115. I don't know. He's a dangerous enough guy where even though Dan Ige is reliable, I'm just more comfortable with the money line. But Bryce is the pick, and I'm pretty sure it will be by decision. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.